In a courtroom in South Korea, there was a 10-year-old girl, small in stature, with a babyish face and a vacant, frightened look in her eyes. She became the center of the courtroom and the subject of heated debate across South Korean society in recent days. The girl had confessed to murdering her 7-year-old younger brother, but behind this trial, was there something even more terrifying than the crime she had admitted to? Was she truly the murderer of her little brother, or merely a victim turned into a criminal? A few years earlier, Da-bin's biological mother had passed away from a serious illness. Not long afterward, her father brought home a new stepmother, which initially made both Da-bin and her brother very happy. At first, the woman seemed kind and caring, bathing them, combing their hair. But over time, her true nature slowly revealed itself. One day, while eating, Da-bin's younger brother accidentally dropped an egg on the floor. Even though he quickly picked it up and ate it, their stepmother still beat him harshly. Witnessing this, Da-bin decided to call the police. However, the officers dismissed the case and instead contacted the welfare center. They even remarked, "Kids these days are scary, getting hit just a little and already calling the police." When the child protection officer arrived and questioned her, Da-bin calmly replied, "If something bad happens, we should report it to the police. Was what I did really wrong?" Faced with her eyes, Jung-ya, welfare officer, could only stand there in silence. After that, they went together to Da-bin's house. Upon seeing them, the stepmother immediately changed her attitude. The moment she saw Da-bin, she rushed over and hugged her affectionately. Whenever strangers were present in the house, the stepmother always acted like a gentle, caring woman, even blaming herself for not knowing how to raise her children properly, saying that Da-bin had learned to lie because of her poor parenting. But as soon as the visitors left, the stepmother beat Da-bin so severely that she nearly lost her life. Her younger brother could only sit in a corner of the room with his ears covered. Even though he could clearly hear his sister's desperate screams, he was helpless and could only watch in silence. Their father was no better. He said that as long as they didn't beat the children to death, it was fine, because as long as Da-bin and her brother stayed in that house, the couple would continue receiving a decent amount of financial support from social welfare programs and relatives. The next day, Da-bin sought help from her teacher. The red marks on her neck were clearly visible, but the teacher, not wanting to get involved in such a troublesome matter, quickly made an excuse to walk away. Da-bin then brought her brother to the welfare center to find Mr. Jung-ya, caseworker who had once tried to help her. Jung-ya took 2 children out to eat hamburgers. It was their first time eating something so delicious, and both Da-bin and her brother were filled with joy. At that moment, when Da-bin accidentally spilled some food on the table while eating, her younger brother immediately scolded her. Jung-yuk found the boy's reaction a bit puzzling, but the younger brother seemed genuinely concerned for his sister. He said that if she kept eating like that, what would she do in the future? In the days that followed, Da-bin and her brother often invited Jung-yuk to hang out with them. During this time, the 2 children were truly happy. On the way back home one day, Jung-yuk even gave the little boy a teddy bear. Before he left, he handed the boy 10,000 won and gave Da-bin a business card, explaining that he would be going on a business trip to Seoul in a few days. But little did he know, that very business card almost got Da-bin killed. That day, Da-bin and her brother returned home as usual. Just as they entered, their stepmother appeared at the door. She noticed the business card in Da-bin's hand. Tears welled up in the girl's eyes as she looked at her stepmother. There was no doubt that she was about to face another brutal beating from the cruel woman. After a while, Da-bin was found unconscious in the bathtub, her body completely drained of strength. Meanwhile, the heartless couple was enjoying a delicious meal, indulging in a comfortable life funded by the social welfare money meant for Da-bin and her younger brother. The next day, Da-bin suddenly collapsed in class, with blood continuously flowing from her ear. At the same time, Jung-yuk received a phone call from her teacher. When he arrived, Da-bin was already lying in a hospital bed, which left him deep in thought. Although her ear was clearly severely injured, Da-bin still tried to comfort him, saying she was fine. This man, whom she had only met a few times, had given her the warmth of a real family. Da-bin tearfully begged him to take her away from that place, but Jung-yuk didn't say a single word in response. Instead, he went to speak with the stepmother. However, she dismissed him coldly, telling him not to meddle in other people's business. So Jung-yuk went to find Da-bin's father. To his shock, the father heartlessly said that whether his daughter was beaten to death or not had nothing to do with Jung-yuk. That night, the younger brother wanted to celebrate Da-bin's release from the hospital. He proudly showed her the money Jung-yuk had given him, saying he would buy her a hamburger. But their stepmother overheard them talking and approached. The boy tried to hide the money behind his back, but he couldn't escape her sharp eyes. The stepmother, suspecting that the boy had stolen her money, launched into a brutal beating. Even the neighbor passing by couldn't help but sigh. It's starting again. Soon after, Jung-hyuk received another phone call. He immediately returned from Seoul, but this time, under the cruel and savage violence of the stepmother, the younger brother was beaten to death. She told the police that the boy had stolen her money and claimed that Da-bin, wanting to keep it for herself, accidentally killed her younger brother in a fit of rage. Just like that, Da-bin was labeled the murderer. She was quickly taken away by the police. However, since she was still a minor, after spending some time in a juvenile rehabilitation center, she was released. In another scene, Jung-hyuk sat alone in his car, recalling the day they parted ways. He realized that the 10,000 won the boy had shown was the very same money he had given him. Ever since then, Jung-hyuk couldn't stop blaming himself. The toys he had given the little boy were now all thrown into the trash by the stepmother. This became the moment Jung-hyuk decided to start investigating the case. The woman truly was terrifying. After finishing at the Judicial Training Institute, it turned out she had served multiple prison sentences for fraud and was a difficult person to deal with. If Jung-hyuk wanted to win in court, Da-bin was the most crucial witness. However, the girl no longer trusted him, so Jung-hyuk could only rely on the chubby neighbor boy to help deliver a gift to her. Inside the gift box, Da-bin discovered an MP3 player. It contained Jung-hyuk's voice, his sincere apology and repentance. He also left a message with a time and place for them to meet. Just as Da-bin was about to go find Jung-hyuk, her stepmother suddenly returned home and saw the MP3 player in her hand. Once again, Da-bin was sure she would be beaten severely. The neighbor boy, who overheard everything from outside, immediately ran to inform Jung-hyuk. Upon hearing the news, Jung-hyuk rushed straight to Da-bin's house. At that moment, the stepmother was beating the girl so severely that Da-bin was on the verge of death. Using the last of her strength, Da-bin clung to her stepmother's leg, but the woman kicked her away violently. She then picked up a wooden chair, preparing to strike the girl to death. Just then, Jung-hyuk was outside, frantically trying to break down the door. He burst into the house, and upon seeing Da-bin unconscious on the floor, he couldn't contain his fury. He looked at the stepmother and shouted that she was nothing more than a monster in human disguise. Without hesitation, he rushed to carry Da-bin out of that hellish house, slinging her over his shoulder. In that moment, Jung-hyuk's eyes reflected unshakable determination. He would make sure that woman paid for everything she had done. Jung-hyuk brought Da-bin to his own home, but that night, her shameless father drove over and demanded to take his daughter back. Jung-hyuk firmly refused to let him come upstairs. In response, the father shouted from below, said that her parents would never abandon her. Clear threat from the vile couple. At her first court appearance, Da-bin was unable to testify due to emotional distress. The cruel stepmother, taking full advantage of her flawless acting skills, calmly passed the court's questioning with ease. After returning home, Jung-hyuk collapsed on the sofa from exhaustion. His nephew came over to nag him about getting up to play. The boy mentioned that some of the toys had video recordings inside. Upon hearing that, Jung-hyuk suddenly sat up straight. He remembered that some of the toys had a built-in recording function. Immediately, Jung-hyuk rushed to the dump to search for the toys, digging through everything, but in the end, he found nothing. The second trial was held soon afterward. This time, Da-bin appeared in court to testify. However, when faced with the lawyer's questions, she couldn't stop crying and was too afraid to say a single word. With no other choice, the judge had to call a recess. If Da-bin continued to stay silent, the trial could not proceed. Just when Jung-hyuk felt most helpless, chubby neighbor boy arrived with the toy. He had seen the stepmother throw away all the toys. This time, Jung-hyuk brought teddy bear court. When Da-bin saw it, she immediately hugged it tightly, feeling as if it were her younger brother. At last, through her tears, Da-bin began to speak the truth. Court officers brought her back into the courtroom, where the audio recording from the teddy bear was played. It revealed the entire process of the stepmother violently abusing the children. After watching the footage, no one in the courtroom pulled back their tears. Who would have imagined that a woman who appeared so beautiful and gentle could be so cruel and heartless, beating her husband's children so savagely? In the end, the stepmother was sentenced to 16 years in prison for child abuse, resulting in death. The father was also sentenced to 5 years for being an accomplice. In reality, many felt that these sentences were far too lenient. This film was adapted from a true story, and that concludes the entire movie. Thank you all for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.